Well, it's the time of the year where everyone chucks out their rubbish, and here's a few of the things that I've managed to pick up. We'll go through them and talk about what they can do and how useful they can be in amateur radio and electronics. First up, we've got this case. Really light, but very strong. It might be handy to put QRP stuff in. Here's a pretty good looking clock radio. We'll plug it in and see if it works.
That race has been very well. Second up we thought we'd go a lot better, but it was a very...
We've got some rods. Not sure if they're fiberglass, but something like these could be handy for antenna insulators. You could cut them up with a saw and make spaces for open wire feed line, drill a couple of holes in each piece. You could make an insulated spacer for your driven element, so that is a possibility. Telescopic TV antennas, one of them's good, and the other thing really important is the balun, 300 ohm to 75 ohm. Anyway, with these, open them up and you might find a little ferritoid, which can be handy for a lot of QRP gear. What have you got here? Plastic box, few RCA connections, AV out, multiple channels on and off. It might possibly be a remote controlled video switch. Puts out some RF, 2.4 GHz and 433.92. And this little antenna here, it says RX, so possibly 2.4 GHz. Maybe that's the receiving antenna. Underneath, and you can just see in the writing 433 MHz TX. It's just a length of insulated wire, looks like about a quarter wavelength on 433 MHz. This, not sure if it's a set-top box, it's got channel up and down, USB. This is a USB controller, obviously for some sort of game. First thing I saw, these two motors. They must vibrate the handles of this and give you a bit of extra realism. And I can see in here a ceramic resonator. Looks like it's 16 megahertz, or maybe it's 26 megahertz. Or maybe that's a Z and it's just 6. Another TV antenna. This one instead has an amplifier built in. A couple of telescopic whips. Oh, okay. Interesting noise it makes. Have you ever wondered about the other antenna element in it? Not just the telescopic whips, but all it is just a loop of wire. The main thing I'll keep is the potentiometer, which also has an on-off switch. Used to find them in old transistor radios, but they're increasingly rare. Got an antenna here, about 1.6 metres long, got an SO239, locally made by ZCG Scaler. And I put it on my transceiver and I found the VSWR was much lower at 450 meg than 430 meg, so UHF CB for sure. Another antenna, TV antenna, obviously elements for VHF high band. 3 elements here, and then there's the rear element, which is massive. This was obviously built in the Channel O days. Here in Melbourne we had a channel 30 or so years ago. On Channel O, 45 to 52 megahertz, and that could be useful for making into an antenna for 6 meters, or even cutting up and making it into a 2 meter antenna. You could make a beam out of it, no problems at all. Maybe even using this as the boom. If you wanted something for portable use, these tubes are out of a mop or broom or something. They could form a boom for a portable 2 meter beam. and you could pull it apart and make it nice and small so you can take along. Again, they were very nice to have it in a bag, and it's even got the instructions, and it's a Logitech camera. Alright, metal junk, computer power supply, rechargeable battery, 12 volt 3500 milliamp hour, nickel metal hydride. That could be just the thing for an FT817. If you want to saw something, saw a bit of wood outside, then this could be quite good to lean it on. And you have here cordless phone. Another phone, much older, a wall phone, which aren't so common. The rotary dial, it's a bit loose, but anyway, it's got the old bell in it, you can hear that there. This year, a lot of people seem to be chucking out printers and scanners, you know, those square, big, boxy things. Anyway, I think it's because everyone's gone paperless, so people are scanning documents a lot less. Anyway, a lot of them on the curb. A lot of people's vacuum cleaners seem to have blown up recently. And clock radios, I think people are using their mobile phones or something else. A clock radio, a Cube, DigiCube it's called. Unfortunately, someone's cut the power cord off, so yeah, we'll have to... Oh, as it happens, here's another power cord. So, yeah, maybe if I cut this power cord off and solder it inside, we might have a working clock radio, you never know. And here's another old one, Akai. It's got an analog dial, looks a bit like a portable TV.
It looks right at home.
It's pretty heavy, made in Australia, power supply, in fact, made here in Melbourne. This is a difference between a professional piece of gear and consumer gear. Look how beautifully it's constructed. The transformer is in a separate compartment to the rest of the bits, although that is very bare bones. All there is a bridge rectifier, 4 diodes, some capacitors, and a 2N355. No voltage regulator ICs or even Zener diodes. Here's the Sony Cube. Curious thing about it is it's also got long wave. It's going to be pretty easy to replace the cord, so I don't need another clock radio, but I'll do it anyway. Particularly interested in how this goes on long wave. You can look at the size of the coil, not single layer, but like a basket weave, so definitely has long wave. And it also helpfully tells you, not sure if you can read it, that the IF is 450 kilohertz.
Sitting to inland parts overnight.
What sort of pain were you in?
This is Mick Warhurst on ABC Radio. If you're into music, you would have heard the term post-rock.
And we'll partner New Zealand in, taking dairy.
Boy and Bear. Their album Suck on Light is our feature album this week on Triple J.
Now we'll try long wave. Some of the European radios for long wave don't cover as wide a band as we would like. We've got steps of, that's interesting, from 153, 155, 162. So the steps are a bit uneven. Well, the highest it goes is 281, which is not very useful here because our aircraft beacon is on 398. This is a nice clock radio. It's got good sensitivity and pulls in the country stations quite well. Selectivity, particularly if stations are strong, isn't so good. Still, it's better than what I've got, and I'll be replacing my 30-year-old clock radio with this. So yeah, that's this year's junk collection. There might even be more, as there's an area over there that hasn't been picked up yet, and you never know, there might be some finds from there. So it started off pretty quiet, but ended up with some good stuff.